inches from that gap in the pit wall. 1 minute to the formation lap now, so engines need to be fired up, and the cars drop down onto the ground in preparation for them making their way round on this final reconnaissance lap. There we can have a look at the tyres, the new tyres on the Williams, which is unusual. Normally the Michelins are using scrub tyres at the start of the race. It's usual to see new tyres for the Ferraris, but not so usual for the Williams.
And we've seen new tyres on Michael, and I think there's a new tyres, just trying to get a look at Rubens, the way the light's shining in the tyre, but certainly new sets on those both of the Williams and on Michael. And as you say, Ben, it's unusual for Michelin. They tend to like to run the tyres prior to putting them on the car, but maybe the tyre philosophy at Michelin is also changing with the season.
So here we are, ready for the start of the formation laps. A chance to lay some rubber down. Watch Barrichello particularly on the dirty side. He might have the traction control fully switched off, or he might decide to leave it on. Let's see how much rubber they lay down, particularly on the left-hand side of the screen as you look at it.
Yellow
Barrichello not getting away at all. Well, they're about laying rubber down. Barrichello has not moved from his grid position. Now, can he get going before the last man passes him? If he can, he'll be able to retake his position, but I don't think he's going to.
No, it looks very unlikely. We've seen Sato go through Eddie Irvine, the last car on the grid. Rubens Barrichello stranded on that front row of the grid. Ross Brawn once again.
Well, disappointing. If they can get him going quickly enough, he might still be. No, it's still not
hydraulics
running.
again, and we think maybe this is the same problem Michael Schumacher had this morning. Now the engine's running, but it doesn't
seem to be any drive.
There's no drive, and again, whether that's a hydraulic problem, that was the problem that inflicted Michael Schumacher when he was in that morning warm-up. Now, Rubens Barrichello, can he get? I doubt he's going to have time to get out and get into the spare car, because it's all set up for Michael Schumacher, and this is something that Ferrari are absolutely distraught about.
Well, look at it. It hardly moved. There was a tiny bit of movement, but they cannot get that thing to run.
Well,
it always happens to Rubens too, doesn't it? It's always his car that seems to go wrong. Poor Rubens Barrichello. He's not getting off the grid this time.
Well, he's not going to get off the grid, and he's not going to get into the race unless they can rectify whatever the problem. Rubens Ferrari, if you hear the engine running,
yeah, that must be even more frustrating.
Let's have a look and see if he can select gear. If he goes through the whole sequence of launch control, if he can get it into gear, he can certainly take part in the Grand Prix. But of course, it's a question of whether he can find the gear and get the car rolling.
Dear, oh dear. So, disaster for Rubens Barrichello. If he'd been able to get going, he would have been able to work his way through to the front. They are allowed to do that now, but of course there was no chance. He's from the pit lane, and even if they get it running, they'll have to start from the pit lane now.
But this is manna from heaven for everybody else, for Williams, for McLaren, for Renault. Those are the teams that are at the front three rows of the grid. Even for Sauber, directly behind David Coulthard and Nick Heidfeld on the fourth row of the grid. And I mean, what a disappointment for the Brazilian. Rubens Barrichello delighting in the performance of the 2002 Ferrari, and then cruelly on the line being forced to push the car into the pit lane. And well, we just don't know whether they're going to get this car fired up or not.
It doesn't look very promising, does it? And the man who's now got some clear space in front of him on the grid will be Juan Pablo Montoya, who starts on the second row with a big gap in front of him. Whether that will help, there's a shake of the head from Rubens Barrichello talking to the team. They're saying, try this, do that, press this, try that, and it's still not doing anything. It's still not working. The grid is beginning to line up. We're waiting for the last few cars. There's still a number of cars to line up, but there's only a few seconds here before the race gets underway, and Rubens Barrichello will be left behind in pit lane. A real disappointment for the friendly Brazilian, who put in so much effort in qualifying yesterday, but all that work has gone to nothing, and we are now all set for the start of round 5 of the FIA Formula 1 World Championship. We're in Spain, and away they go, and it's a good start from Michael Schumacher from pole position. Montoya with clear space, trying to get a run, but watch out for Button. Jenson Button is going to challenge Montoya into the first corner. Ralf Schumacher makes a move on his brother up front, but he's not close enough. And Button and Raikkonen side by side. Raikkonen gets in front of Jenson Button, and it's Michael Schumacher who leads his brother Ralf Schumacher. Juan Pablo Montoya is in third.
And it looks like it was a clean start for everybody. Great start from Michael Schumacher. Ralf did the business. Montoya behind them. Raikkonen had to battle because Jenson Button in fact had gotten ahead of the lead McLaren, but Raikkonen went round the outside in turn 1 and got position back in turn 2.
Raikkonen certainly aggressive at the start. Last time out in Imola, he managed to squeeze his way back past Coulthard after he'd made a bit of a bad start himself, Raikkonen. and managed to make up some important ground. Going through the shot is Heidfeld, and they still haven't got Barrichello going. Really, it's all over now. If they haven't got him going and he can join in on this lap, they might as well forget it.
Yeah, their car's going to be pushed back to the garage. The spare car, of course, set up for Michael Schumacher, and it's all over this afternoon. Disappointment in bucket loads for Rubens Barrichello.
So you're watching Nick Heidfeld. Now keep an eye on that Sauber. They may well try some clever little tactics on the Bridgestone tyres. He's got away in 8th position as our race leader. Look at him, already beginning to pull away from brother Ralph. The top 2 in the Drivers' Championship are 1 and 2 in this race. Michael Schumacher with a 1.5 second lead over Ralph in 2nd, Montoya in 3rd, and then on down the list, Raikkonen, Button, Coulthard is in 6th place, 7th position for Jarno Trulli, and 8th for Heidfeld.
Jarno Trulli got the benefit of, well, let's say one of those places is due to Barrichello, but already making up 1 place on the start, but Michael Schumacher just pulling away. It was 1.5 seconds when they came across the line. At the end of lap 1, it's probably about the same as they go into the Repsol corner. One Pablo Montoya trying to keep in touch with his brother as Rubens Barrichello sits there. Well, are they going to send him out or not? I don't believe they will do.
They're still trying to start it, so they're still trying to get it up and running, and maybe still hope to get him into this race. Montoya holding on to 3rd place. He's got Kimi Raikkonen close behind him. Let's take another look at the start here. In fact, as it worked out, it was fairly even. Watch for Jarno Trulli, who seemed to make up a bit of ground in the 2nd Benetton. We can watch Jenson Button in the or Renault, I should say. I call it Benetton, that's naughty of me. And Button there managed to get away well initially, got in front of Raikkonen, then watch Raikkonen come to the outside, squeeze around the outside of Button, just about enough room for them both to get through there.
Yeah, but Jenson, that he was on the inside line, he braked marginally earlier. The car's moving. You can see the run he got. That's Raikkonen on his left. So he's behind Montoya. He's got the advantage at the start, but as they come down into turn 1, he's on the inside. He brakes marginally earlier. Raikkonen, you'll see, he'll shoot down on the left. Then he can stick. There is the nose of the McLaren. He now just bullies Button. And we know that Jenson's not going to go to war in the first lap, first corner of a Grand Prix. Last corner, last lap, different deal.
Raikkonen is very impressive on cold tyres, though it has to be said. He's very aggressive and worked that well. And look at Rubens, the frustration evidence as he gets out of the car. He cannot believe it. He's only had 1 finish so far this year. That was 2nd place out last time at Imola. Every other time something's gone wrong. The accidents in Melbourne and then mechanical problems every other Grand Prix since then.
Well, are we seeing an Achilles heel appearing in this year's Ferrari? Michael Schumacher this morning had a problem. He stopped out on track. Look at Rubens. I mean, just absolutely gutted. The guy's just going to walk away, just have a few moments of privacy and just get himself back to normal and come back and then have a debrief with the team. But of course Ross and all the other guys are on the pit lane, but he can't. Oh, and there's Pedro de la Rosa. De la Rosa has spun, and I don't know if anyone else is involved. That's down at turn 7. That's the... He was running in 19th place, and also we've seen one of the BARs has retired as well. Barrichello. See if we can hear anything. Team maybe trying to make contact, but he's well in that gravel. I don't think he's going to drive his way out of that. And it looks as though De La Rosa's race could well be over. Irvine is ahead of him. Was ahead of him anyway, I think. I just wonder, was that a bit of a race between the 2 Jaguars coming into turn 7 and 8? If you see another part of bodywork, a McLaren has shared a part of its bodywork, I think. Panis on the move here. Olivier Panis trying to get past Frentzen. It doesn't quite come off, and Frentzen currently in 10th. And it's rear wing of Raikkonen. It's the rear wing of Raikkonen. Well spotted, John. A McLaren rear wing. Well, we lost a Minardi rear wing. Was that contact? We didn't see anything. Who was behind Raikkonen? It was Jenson Button. And well, there's no evidence yet of any damage on his car. And there we see the remains of that rear wing. And again, on the main straight, the fastest part of the circuit, Kimi Raikkonen driving around the racetrack. You saw him go around here. Well, this is the incident. Well, Pedro de la Rosa all on his own. Turns into turn 7. The back end gets away, and it's down to you, Pedro. That was just simply a driving error. He doesn't seem to go well in the Spanish Grand Prix. Perhaps the pressure gets to him. Now, let's take a look at the background. Watch for the McLaren. There it is. It's the rear wing. It just literally fell off. That rear wing just almost seemed to tumble off the back of the McLaren. Again, Raikkonen able to keep the car in control. Maybe he had a presence of mind to sense something had gone wrong. He maybe felt it. There's the back of Raikkonen's car. You can see Irvine comes past as he makes his way back to the pits. I mean, it's... Well, again, the main support for the ring, that main beam that attaches to the gearbox is there. It appears that the problem, the left-hand side of that rear wing, the right-hand side wing end plate is just lying over, So whether, again, which I can't believe I've had 2 rear wing failures in the space of 4 hours here at the Spanish Grand Prix.
Very much a cause for concern, and the question is, John, what about David Coulthard? Is the team, seeing this, going to have to do something about David Coulthard?
I think the first thing to find out is, was there any contact that could have caused the parts in the car? They're just going to park the car. I think Kimi Räikkönen has decided we're not going to take part in any further races here this afternoon. Now, as you say, Ben, what are they going to do with David Coulthard? Is this a one-off? Was there contact with another car on the track? It's not as if that Räikkönen had gone off track, because the rear wing is not vulnerable to curbing as the front wing is. So that sounds to me as if it was something structural, simply just failed.
There is the car of David Coulthard, currently now running in 5th place behind the car of Jenson Button, and right behind him you're looking at Jarno Trulli.
And there you can see how the rear wing is supported. You've got that main structure attached to the gearbox, houses the rear light, then there's 2 end plates attached at the outer ends, then you go up and then you've got the elements, those 2 elements plus the main plane of the rear wing.
Well, it's certainly a concern for McLaren. You'd have to wonder, they must be assessing the damage on Räikkönen's car, trying to find out what happened, and he might get the call, Coulthard. You never know, he might get the call to come in.
Then the other thing that we were talking about between morning warm-up and the Grand Prix is, it is very critical, the exhaust, how it flows around, and if there's, again, a slight misalignment, for example, of an exhaust pipe, it will just pour hot exhaust gases onto parts of carbon fibre which are not designed for that intense heat. There you can see on the left of the screen that grey area, that is the exit of the exhaust system. Now maybe that has a contribution.
Let me just tell you, Fisichella has come into the pits. I think he's got some sort of problem. He was dropping down the order and he has just come into the pit lane. So Giancarlo Fisichella in trouble, and in fact driving straight into his pit garage. Oh dear, it looks as though it's over already for the Italian in the Jordan, his teammate.
Did you hear them telling you disposition 0? Let's just check the proper route.
Oh, now that's interesting.
Well, confusion between the pit wall and Giancarlo Fisichella.
Sounds as though he may not have set something that he should have done, and we were talking earlier on about how complicated it is now for these drivers, what they have to do within the cockpit to set things on the steering, and maybe something has gone wrong there. We don't quite know what's happened. There is Pedro de la Rosa running back in, of course his day over as well. We've got a number of cars out of this race already. Barrichello, de la Rosa and Kimi Räikkönen. It looks like Fisichella, and Mika Salo must have had a problem because he's been in and out of the pits.
Well then, you know, like aircraft, racing cars have got backup systems, and it maybe seems to me is when something went wrong for Fisichella on the Jordan, he didn't make the right move, he didn't flick the right switch or turn the right dial, and I think that was the message that was coming from the pit wall into the garage when Fisichella drove into the garage. So it may be that Fisichella will return to the racetrack, but already now losing lap upon lap. Mika Salo also had a very rapid pit stop early in this race. He's running down in 17th and last place.
Michael Schumacher has an advantage of 5.1 seconds over his brother Ralph. We're riding on board with Olivier Panis in 10th. You saw the battle a moment ago between himself and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. You can see Frentzen just ahead on the road now, 9th position with 1 or 2 retirements. 10th for Panis, behind him is Takuma Sato in 11th. Bernoldi 12th and Villeneuve 13th. McNish still running in 14th. Irvine is 15th, and Salo is the one at the back now, having made a pit stop, 16th.
But Michael Schumacher is increasing his lead by the lap, by about a second a lap, and that's the kind of gap that we saw in qualifying between the lead Ferrari, Michael Schumacher, and the lead Williams, which was Ralf Schumacher. So look, there's the gap. Ralph's just exiting 13, Michael's 3/4 ways down the straight, and the gap now is 6.1 seconds with 7 laps completed.
Again, another very fast opening stint from Michael Schumacher. There goes Jenson Button, chased by David Coulthard. No word yet of any call from McLaren Mercedes, but there, Adrian Newey. Well, if there's a man who knows anything about technology of a modern Formula 1 car, it's that man, and you would have complete confidence in whatever he says should be done, whether David should stay out or whether he should be brought back in.
And complete confidentiality, because the team realise, they see on their monitors on the pit wall that our cameras are looking into their pits. They don't like that. They just put the screen up and said, thanks guys, but that's, you've had enough.
Well, let's hope they do find the route to the problem there. Scary for Kimi Räikkönen. Again, it happened on the straight, and Thankfully, no other car was immediately behind him that got affected by the wing coming off, but a very nasty incident. We saw it on the Minardi of Mark Webber this morning, from one end of the grid to the other, from one relatively poorly financed team to one of the best financed teams in Formula One. Things can still go wrong.
Juan Pablo Montoya once again losing out to his teammate in this Grand Prix. Okay, we're only on lap 9, but nevertheless it is Ralf Schumacher that is taking the Williams challenge up to Michael Schumacher and Ferrari, and Ferrari will no doubt be sitting on eggs waiting to see whether the problem that afflicted Michael this morning is going to continue in the afternoon. And I have a very good feeling whatever happened to Rubens Barrichello was a mirror of what happened to Schumacher and Michael this morning.
So Coulthard, his last lap time was a 1:24.171. That was actually a fraction faster than Button ahead of him, but not really enough to talk about. And it's one thing here, particularly once you get into the slipstream of another car, very, very difficult to follow. There, the gap between the Ferrari and Williams up front. Ralf Schumacher, certainly Montoya staying much more in touch with Ralf Schumacher than we saw last time in Imola. The gap between them around 2.7 seconds currently, and then behind Montoya it is Jenson Button in the Renault, as the Williams team watch this with interest. They always knew they would be up against it here in Barcelona, but they must be have a little bit of a confidence boost by the fact that Ferrari are having some reliability troubles here, witnessed by Schumacher's problem in the warm-up and by Barrichello's failure to start.
Interestingly, at the very tail of the field, Mika Salo doing a very, very quick lap. Now he's on his own doing 23.9, and that is as quick as anybody from the first three. Michael Schumacher accepted, but the 23s for Ralf and for Montoya, and Salo going very quickly indeed. Everybody else 24s, and then into the low 1 minute 25s.
Well, Michael had one lap there where he wasn't quite so quick, maybe made a mistake somewhere, but now this next lap he's 1.5 seconds faster than Ralf Schumacher, and he's just disappearing once again. 8.1 seconds the gap between the lead pair. A
good battle here between Frentzen and the Arrows and Panis in the VAR. Two teams yet to score points this season, and Frentzen not really wanting to look in his rearview mirrors. He's focused ahead of him because he's got Felipe Massa, and he's running Felipe Massa down the gap 3.2 seconds. It was a little bit over that, and he really wants to get on terms with the Sauber, because just ahead of Massa is Nick Heidfeld, and then just ahead of him you've got Jarno Trulli, and Trulli is the last of the point scorers at this minute. So we're looking at a replay here of Eddie Irvine. Let's just see what he was doing. Running a little wide, you can see the shimmy on that rear wing as he goes over the curb, and it just gives you an idea of how conditions change here at Barcelona, and to a certain extent how different the car is in race trim. They're a full 6 seconds a lap slower than he was in qualifying at this stage for Michael Schumacher, John. It's a huge difference. There is a much stronger wind today, temperature's not that high, and with the car in race trim, that's the difference, some 6 seconds a lap. Yes, I think Michael's able to pull away very comfortably without even extending himself. Had time, just as he came down pit straight, to take one of those visor rip-offs that put on the main visor of your helmet. And normally you do that when you're running in traffic, but no traffic for Michael. Maybe just some unfortunate fly just went splot on his windscreen, on his visor, and he chose to take the time to do it. So, I mean, really, so far, Michael, just a perfunctory run for him, pulling away by a second to 9.3 seconds at the end of lap 10. And unless he is on a three-stop strategy, which he could be, he will need to pull away by at least a second a lap, because he will be beginning to make pit stops somewhere much earlier. So let's just watch that Ferrari for a moment. It looks absolutely fantastic. He's using the curbs up to the white lines, but still very, very controlled for Michael Schumacher. And it's the balance of this car, the way that he seems to be able to put it wherever he wants, even when flat out, that is so impressive to watch. Here is Juan Pablo Montoya running in third position, lying in third in the Drivers' Championship, behind the two Schumacher brothers, but desperate for a decent result. This is where he scored his first points in Formula One last year, with a second position up on the podium behind Michael after Mika Häkkinen's dramatic retirement on the last lap. And don't forget, things can go wrong right until the last moment here, as at any Grand Prix. We saw it last year for Mika Häkkinen. Michael Schumacher's still got some 54 laps to go before he can rack this one up as another victory. Well, 10.4 seconds came at the same time as Michael had a fastest race lap,
Sato.
1:22.8.
Look at Sato, he's right off wide
Turn
into
13.
the gravel. And that looked to be like a driver error. We'll have to take a look at the replay. Looked as though he ran wide.
And that would be coming out of 12. I think he may have ridden the curb, but certainly he's spinning out. Well,
The Japanese driver, he's been certainly a bit wayward.
It's all over.
He was
Let's take a look.
too wide in the exit of 12. Gets into a tank snapper, still keeps his foot in it, to give him credit for being courageous and brave, but fighting a losing battle. And at this stage, Sato's race is over. Jordan's are now, both cars are out of this afternoon's Grand Prix. Once again, the Silverstone base team is going to go back to their base without a point in the championship. Poor Eddie Irvine, poor Eddie Jordan, let alone Eddie Irvine, poor Eddie Jordan. Not a good day for the Irish. Irvine also struggling in 14th place. And Eddie Jordan saying, well, what have I got to do? What do I have to do?
Takuma Sato's car is carried away as Michael Schumacher comes across the line to complete yet another lap in front. 12 laps he's completed, and his gap 10.4 seconds last time around. Let's see what it is as we wait for Ralph to come across the line, and Ralph at 1:23.5 in fact maintained the gap the same on that lap. Interestingly enough, the top two for once lapping at the same pace.
And Michael Schumacher's pace, he's dropped off now. Whether that was due to the yellow flag, he just might have backed off, but basically he's still, at this stage of the race you might expect it anyway. But remember, last year's fastest lap was a 1:21.151. So far we've not seen anything yet in the 1:21s. The theoretical fastest lap was a 21.7, but so far no one's put theory into practice.
So through the tight left-hander climbing up the hill, Antonio Pizzonia watching closely. He's driving in Formula 3000 at the moment, and is also another of the test drivers for Williams. Marc Genet is the one who does most of the work there, but Antonio Pizzonia is another possible star of the future, and he's another Brazilian. He's come through the British motorsports in Formula Renault and Formula 3 very successfully, and looking for his opportunity to get into Grand Prix racing. So Montoya comes through. He's still some 2.6 seconds behind his teammate, but the Williams drivers seem to be able to do nothing about Michael Schumacher. Ross Brawn watches the monitors, and this next lap from Michael, 1:22.4. So there is a bit of a change in pace on some of Michael's laps.
Yes, I mean, the fact that's not Michael's just completed now his 13th lap. On the 12th lap, Juan Pablo Montoya was about a 10th of a second quicker than Michael Schumacher. Now Michael back down to his regular race pace in the middle 1:22s, 0.8 of a second faster than Montoya. So Michael may be just making an adjustment, maybe something he was talking on the radio to the team in the pits. The gap 11.4 seconds, but most crucially Michael back into the middle 1:22s, while everybody else at best is doing middle 1:23s.
Now Eddie Irvine running currently in 14th position, a long way outside the points, which only go down to 6th, but he's still applying himself. Alan McNish is the next car up the road, and he's some 6.4 seconds behind the Toyota. McNish is still going. That's one of the main things, because Alan, of course, didn't even get to the first corner last time out at Imola.
No, and remember Eddie Irvine, we saw him in the pits prior to going on the grid, having that last-minute rear spring change. And poor Eddie must be thinking, well, you know, I've given 3 years of my life to Jaguar, and what have I got? I've got a car that is the slowest car right now in the field, and all I'm doing is just battling with myself and the car. And I just wonder what Eddie's thoughts are going to be, as he cannot really in the short term see much prospect of improvement for Jaguar. And when improvement comes, where's it going to place the team? It can't place them at the very sharp end. They could need to bring them maybe up a couple more places on the grid.
A lonely race for him. There's no one behind him either to note, because Mika Salo, the only other runner, is 29.4 seconds behind, having made a pit stop very, very early on to sort out some problem. Now, watch Michael Schumacher up towards the Repsol curve. Turns it in neatly, just gets it tightly into the apex and hard on the throttle, and all 850 to 900 horsepower going down onto the road, and now into the tight Seat hairpin, just a little wide of the apex there.
And once again, another fastest lap of the race for Michael Schumacher, 22.196. So Michael just upping the pace, and I suspect once again being encouraged to do so. He knows he's under no threat. The only threat will come from, maybe to say, a real off-the-wall strategy that Williams BMW may be trying, but I can't see anything on sheer performance beating this man and his equipment this afternoon.
No, he looks supreme, and we've got the privilege to ride with the reigning world champion, the man chasing that record, matching 5th title here today. It's a real privilege to have the chance to watch him at work.
But you could hear coming through turn 11, that's that double apex right-hander who's having to wait. He's holding back all the time before he can get the power down, and that indicates he's got a fair amount of understeer.
15 laps completed out of the 65, and we might start to see people coming into the pits on the next lap or two. Last year we saw one or two coming in from lap number 16, so if you go for a short first stint, then you may well see cars beginning to come into the pits fairly soon. Ralf Schumacher in second position, and he's still 13.8 seconds off his brother Michael.
But Ben, more crucially, Juan Pablo Montoya has shaved that lead down to 2.4 seconds. He took 3/4 of a second out of Ralf Schumacher on that last lap. Jenson Button, he's 5.7 seconds behind Montoya and falling away. He's also doing high 1 minute 23s, but David Coulthard 24.0, still a third, 1.3 seconds. So Button cannot relax, and he's in fact being driven by Coulthard. There is Coulthard, there is Button, and there's Jarno Trulli. So it's a real Renault sandwich with Mercedes in the middle.
Well, we've seen this battle a few times already this year. Last time out at Imola, Jenson Button managed to come home in 5th place. Said that was one of his best drives in Formula One so far, because he really took the battle to McLaren and had a great race throughout, and a middle stint in particular that enabled him to get that 5th place.
David talked before the start of the race about the back end of his McLaren. It felt very, very oversteery in the morning, and I suspect that as tyre wear sets in, he'll find he's going to have a difficult car. And the worst thing you have is an oversteering car, which is something that you haven't got control over. Look at the amount of work on the steering wheel. That's through turn 11. Watch him through 12.
Now through the final corner.
Well, that looks pretty neutral and comfortable for me, but nevertheless, what you see on board and on the camera, what the driver feels can often be entirely different. In the meantime, Michael Schumacher still continuing to extend that lead, 14.4, and once again the fastest car on the circuit through this first sector.
Now watch Coulthard as he comes up. Listen now. There's quite a long period in that corner where they're off the power and then feeding the throttle open again.
Yeah, but I must say, David said it was oversteery in the morning. The balance in the medium and high speed corners looks very good to me. He's not having to make many corrections. He's able to balance it very much on the throttle. So maybe things are coming to David Coulthard, now 1.4 seconds behind Jenson Button.
Michael Schumacher's not too far off, lapping the first car for him today, and that will be Mika Salo, who made an early pit stop and is running in 15th and last position, and he's only a little way ahead. He's just gone through the final corner now, and now Michael Schumacher will begin to get a view of the rear wing of the Toyota of Mika Salo. Alan McNish still running in 13th place, 2 places ahead of Salo, but again a little bit on his own. Meanwhile, Bernoldi and Villeneuve are having a bit of a dice, as are Frentzen and Panis.
Yeah, the opinion is that both the VARs are probably being marginally held up by both of the arrows, and again that's a further indication as to what the VAR team may choose to do in strategy. So let's keep an eye out to see if VAR might choose to bring in Villeneuve or Panis a little bit early, get them out of sequence, but enable them to get back out and get onto a clear part of track to be able to run at their true potential.
Let's watch Michael turning into the downhill left-handed Seat hairpin, and they're taking this corner fairly quickly. It's still quite a fast corner, building up to about 130 on the exit of it, a little bit slower through the midsection, but it's still, the aerodynamics of the car are still coming into play considerably before accelerating down the next straight. The slow motion pictures showing us that car working to its best as Michael Schumacher continues his march forwards to extend the championship lead, which already is some 14 points.
And Michael, as he comes through turns 11 down through 12, you can see just ahead of him there is Mika Salo in the Toyota. Salo came into the pits very early, made a pit stop and back out, was running at that point very quickly indeed, running now in the low 1 minute 24s, but Michael Schumacher will want to find a part of track where he can get past the Toyota without having to lose time. Now where he is, he's now about 3 seconds behind the Toyota as they go into this long Renault corner. He'll be looking for cooperation from Mika Salo towards the end of the lap, ideally not getting held up in those final 3 right-hand corners.
Watch the rev counter on the left-hand side there of the picture. You can see how hard the engine's working. Oh, and we just lose the onboard camera. 18,000 revs or so is what they're revving to. Compare that to most road cars that rev up to 6,500, 7,000. Maybe if you've got a hot hatch up to 8,500, some of them latest, but still that's well under half the number of revs that these Formula 1 engines do.
And just confirming the progress of Juan Pablo Montoya, 2.6 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher. Ralph's got the message that his teammates on the march, and that's drawn Montoya away from Jenson Button, who's still got David Coulthard directly behind at 1.6 seconds.
Now Michael fairly close to Mika Salo, and Salo getting the blue flag. You can see the blue flag indicator on the corner of the screen there. The problem, when you get to within about 1 second of the car in front, is that even within a second, and that's quite a lot of distance on the road, your car's aerodynamics are being affected immediately.
Now watch to see Mika Salo. He will have been aware there's blue flags and a blue light in his car indicating a race leader. He pulls over to the right, and there's the flag on the right, lets Michael go through. And I thought, Michael would not want to get too close through those final 3 corners. He held back. He knew that the lights and the flags were going to be shown to Mika Salo, so no loss of time for Ferrari. Well done by Mika Salo. That's what the lights and the flags are there to do. But here, a battle, Coulthard and Jarno Trulli, and David Coulthard at the same time trying to run down Button, dropping back marginally as Trulli puts pressure on the back of Coulthard.
This is such a crucial battle, the one between McLaren and Renault. We've lost one McLaren, remember, that of Kimi Raikkonen, when his rear wing failed coming down start-finish straight. Didn't lead to any other dramas, but it's put Raikkonen out of the race. So we're one McLaren down, both Renaults still running. Trulli then chased by Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber, who is 1.4 seconds behind. Felipe Massa in the second Sauber still running, and then it's Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 9th and Olivier Panis in 10th.
And the gap between Button and 4th to Coulthard, Trulli, Heidfeld, those 4 cars are covered in total by about just under 5 seconds. And the Renault team sitting very happily, shaking their legs. And no indication at all from Renault that they're thinking about making a pit stop as we now complete midway through lap 20. So the window for a normal 2-stop race would be opening around lap 20 to 24. But of course somebody or many people may choose to do a 2-stopper by going much deeper and maybe taking lap 27 to 29 as their benchmark for their first pit stop.
Yes, last year the McLarens went to about lap 27 before they came into the pits, but Williams stopped on about lap 21, so we do see a little bit of a range in strategy, and that will become a little more obvious as we go through the next few laps.
Yeah, so we just had some word from the pit lane, and Ron Dennis saying that there was no apparent sign of any contact with Kimi Raikkonen's wing, and therefore all we can conclude is that this was a failure, a stress failure primarily on the rear wing of Kimi Raikkonen's McLaren.
So that has to be cause for concern, and I'm sure they will be very aware on Coulthard's car. Maybe in his pit stop they might have a quick look around, but it's probably one of those failures that you can't see anything until it actually happens. Very difficult to determine when something's about to go. On the Ferrari pit wall, they're concentrating on just their one car, of course, after Rubens Barrichello failed to get away at the start of this Grand Prix. But their one car is where they want it to be. It's out in front as we ride on board Juan Pablo Montoya's car.
And this battle between the two Williams, they've been shadowing each other for about 3 or 4 laps. The gap down to 2.2 seconds. Montoya pushing very, very hard on this lap 22 of 65 to try and close up. And what he will be looking for is to get sufficiently close to Ralf Schumacher that when his time for a pit stop occurs, that he can get in and out and take that position away from Ralf during this first round of pit stops, which we expect to come fairly shortly.
A new fastest lap once again for Michael Schumacher up front to 121.7 as opposed to 123.1 for Ralf Schumacher. So Michael still pulling away lap by lap by lap. The Ferrari fans are loving this display that Michael Schumacher is putting on, but for the Williams guys, they are just feeling frustrated that they cannot stay on terms with this man.
Somebody else who's doing a personal best right now is Jenson Button in 4th place. He's 9.4 seconds ahead. 9.4 seconds behind Montoya, but more crucially, he's increasing the gap to David Coulthard in 5th, up to 2.3 seconend.
The Banco de Sabadell corner coming up, and then into New Holland, the 2 final right-handers of the lap. This will be 22 laps completed as Michael Schumacher comes around this time. So we're about 1/3 distance here. So pit stops very likely as we see a 2-stop race, the most likely outcome. He comes down into turn number 1, and we're still waiting for Ralf Schumacher to cross the line. That is the extent of his advantage.
Well, in fact, he's got more than the length of the pit straight lead. We're waiting to see Ralph come across. It was 19.3 seconds, now 20.2 seconds. The gap between first and second place. And already we're seeing Toyota preparing for one of their two cars. McNish 13th, Mika Salo in 15th. Mika, of course, being in the pits very early and then rejoined the race, but he rejoined in last place.
Great view over the back of the Williams here, looking over that rear wing, and you can see the gaps.
Yes, but not so much the gaps. It's the way that Montoya has been shaving time off Ralf Schumacher's advantage. It was 2.2 seconds recently. Now it's 1.8, and Renault have decided, well, are we going to bring in Jarno Trulli or Jenson Button first? And the battle between the two Renaults for 4th, 5th and 6th place with the McLaren is the highlight so far.
It is, and Coulthard knows he's got a battle on his hands here. McLaren may be going deeper into this race than Renault. We'll wait and see if that's the case. But these three guys absolutely on the limit, because they know that just a little edge on any one of these laps, or a little mistake more likely on one of these laps, and they'll be out of that battle for what is 4th position. Button in 4th at the moment, Coulthard in 5th. There you can see the gap, and then Jarno Trulli in 6th position. Taking a look, and it looked like a little mistake from Coulthard, not a serious one, just the back end of the car a little bit light under braking.
It just looked like he either just the brake momentarily grabbed, or maybe on the downshift, maybe that just grabbed. It just made the back end of the McLaren just go oops a daisy, and just a wake-up call for David Coulthard, just to remember that a car that he had found to be not very comfortable in the morning warm-up could still turn around and grab him.
Now Button's gone through, so it must be Jarno Trulli. There he is, coming into the pit lane. So Trulli from 6th position, that puts Heidfeld through up into 6th, and Massa goes through now as well as on the speed limit. Jarno Trulli makes his way to the Renault pits, and Williams now preparing also to receive one of their cars, either Montoya or Ralf Schumacher from 2nd and 3rd positions.
So this is lap 24 for the Renault, 8.4 seconds, that's an average stop, therefore it's judged by the time, the fuel, so expect to see one of the two Williams, as we've also got now Toyota. We've got Villeneuve, McNish in the pits, Trulli back out on track as Michael Schumacher comes down through turn 13. No sign of Ferrari making an entry into the pit lane yet in his part. I mean, what does this do to the teams? Michael Schumacher just running away. 21.3 was his last lap, the time he just come across the start finish line, and he's still running with more fuel on board than probably anybody else out there.
Yeah, and he certainly wasn't running late, because the sort of pace and the sort of distance he's gone into this race, there's no way he was on a light fuel load. Now into the pits comes Ralf Schumacher. Ralf into the pits from 2nd position now, so Montoya goes through in 2nd, inheriting that from his teammate, and Montoya's next few laps will be crucial, because if he can put in a quick 1 or 2 here.
Down one hole on the front wing.
And they're making a change on that car of Ralph's.
And David Coulthard now with clear air. Both Renaults have made their pit stops. Jenson Button, well, he's in the pits. Of course, Jarno Trulli has gone out. He's actually done the fastest second sector of anybody on that out lap.
So down to the first corner again. Michael Schumacher, another fastest lap on number 24 at 21.376 as Ralf Schumacher rejoins, and he comes in just behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen there. Frentzen currently running in 8th.
Jenson Button returns to the track. So Button, I don't know how long we didn't see his pit stop, so we come out ahead of Jarno Trulli. He was ahead on the road before the first round of pit stop, so the Renault team giving just about equal value to both their drivers, but of course Trulli up to speed, having given a very, very quick second sector on his first flying lap.
Let me tell you that Montoya will be coming in this time around. I can see that the Williams crew are getting ready. There we are. And so he will coming in. Whether he's been able to put in a fast enough lap on this just single lap that he's had.
He's in the box, steady onto the spot, up half a hole on the front wing car.
We'll try and keep an eye on where Ralf Schumacher is around the circuit and see whether we'll see a change for 2nd place here.
And both Williams drivers making aerodynamic changes. Ralph having a change, Montoya doing the same. So fresh tyres. Are those new tyres? Problem right front. Yes, it's okay.
Yeah,
as you see Michael Schumacher preparing 10.4 slow time for Montoya.
That was a slow stop indeed. The problem on the right front, and now he starts to come back out. Ralph goes through, and therefore Montoya will rejoin in what is effectively 3rd position.
And he'll feel disappointed. 10.4 seconds was not maybe as good as you'd hoped for. A second off, that would have brought him just that little bit closer to Ralph Schumacher as he makes his way on the opening lap on brand new tyres around that long Renault corner down into Repsol. Be careful, your first lap out. Michael Schumacher in for the first time this afternoon.
So the Ferrari, the only Ferrari in this race, but it is the one that's leading by nearly 30 seconds as he comes in this time around, and the tyres go on. The Bridgestone tyres that are working so effectively here at the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain. And a bit of a delay getting the fuel hose out, but they do get it out. There was a couple of years ago, Michael Schumacher knocked one of his main men over. Nigel Stepney ended up with a broken ankle, but they did get it out cleanly, and he is now free to come out on track.
And of course under no pressure whatsoever, because he'd built up a 30-second advantage before he came into the pits. Both the Williams have been in, so we're just waiting to see how this all unfolds.
What we haven't seen yet is Coulthard come in. So David Coulthard has now moved up, and well, that should be interesting to watch, although I don't think he will have taken the lead of the race because Michael Schumacher had such a comfortable advantage. No, indeed, Schumacher comes back out in the lead, but Coulthard now in second place, and we're watching the Saubers making their way, one of the Saubers into the pits. There's Felipe Massa coming in, and Frentzen also in.
And Juan Pablo Montoya also on those new tyres, trying once again to hunt down teammate Schumacher. Montoya fastest in that second sector with his brand new set of Michelins as Felipe Massa makes his way down the pit lane, gets out ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Frentzen will be disappointed. He wanted to stay, well, more in contact with the two Saubers. Comes out behind him. We wait until when the is at BAR's at Panis. Frentzen loses that place to Panis. The pit stop not quite quick enough. The BAR takes away the position from the Arrows. Ran behind him all that first session.
Yes, so Olivier Panis will be delighted about that, having followed Frentzen around for lap after lap. The pit stop has worked to his advantage. Panis pushing hard. You can see, he's sliding that BAR around all over the place, but he was desperate to stay in front of Frentzen. Frentzen's very quick, straight out of the pits, and looking to get back into the battle himself. This one could go on all afternoon.
Just watching the two cars out of the Seat turn, the Arrows look to me to have the better bite, the better balance, the better drive off the corner. But the BAR and Arrows have been pretty much par on terms of out-and-out performance. David Coulthard.
Yeah, not stopped yet, John. So he's running in second place to Michael Schumacher. And Nick Heidfeld, who was in third, has just come in to the pits. So this Sauber's going well. I want to see where Heidfeld comes back out. This could be interesting. I don't think he won't challenge the Williams, but whether he'll be able to challenge the Renault, particularly of Jarno Trulli, I want to see that.
Well, there's one Renault, there's the other, and there is Heidfeld. So both the Renaults have gone through. So no advantage to either, and the two Renaults back to where they effectively were. Of course, as David Coulthard is now the only car that is out of sync of the top six. He is yet to make a stop. What McLaren are hoping to do is to go deep into this first stint, make a very fast first pit stop, and hopefully put them, when they come back out on track, ahead of Jenson Button. And McLaren, of course, we've seen doing this so many times in the past.
Yes, and it's been a very successful tactic often for them in the past. But let's wait and see what happens on this occasion. Last year here at Barcelona, David came in on lap number 28. At the moment we're on lap number 27. I wonder if they're going to stick to the same strategy or change it slightly for this year. Michael Schumacher, look at that, he's made one stop. He's got an advantage of 11 seconds over a man who hasn't even stopped yet, and the advantage to the next guy is over 20 seconds.
But what's most crucial is that David Coulthard has made his personal fastest on every sector, personal fastest lap. He is being encouraged, he's not being encouraged, he's being instructed by the pit lane to say, David, push, push, push. We need to find more time. If we're to get you on the podium, have a chance of a podium. And right now that's probably very marginal because Ralf Schumacher and Montoya are running within a second of each other. But certainly to finish ahead of the Renaults, you need to push.
Yes, it's to get ahead of Button that David Coulthard really is looking at the moment. That's his realistic target. Button currently in 5th position, remember. Coulthard not having stopped yet, still running in second. And here's this great battle that's going on between Olivier Panis and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, two very experienced Grand Prix drivers. Two drivers that have raced in more Grand Prix than many others down there in the pit lane, and putting on quite a show. But for the moment it's Panis that has the advantage in the BAR Honda.
And inevitably, there's the McLaren ready for, so David Coulthard is going to come in on lap 29. And does a Ralf Schumacher or something?
Damage
indeed. Is it barge board or something? It's hard to tell. Let's look at the side. Yes, damage to the right side of Ralf Schumacher. Was that the result of going off track?
Trying to listen. Montoya's ahead of him. Try and listen to the team as well. Montoya has got past him, so Ralf, I think, I don't know whether he made a mistake or what, but problems for Ralf Schumacher, and there is David Coulthard. So Coulthard makes his pit stop, the fuel goes on board. They're looking at that rear wing. Good close look at that rear wing, and I think
Ralf is in. Ralf Schumacher's come into the pits.
Now where's David's going to come back out? Is he going to get out ahead of Button? Button's just come through the final corner. Coulthard comes down the pit road. Ralf Schumacher in the pits for a new front wing.
One more left front. Left front tyre. Left front tyre. Put that tyre back on then. Put the front tyre back on. Put that tyre back on.
Oh, and there's all sorts of trouble. They're going to put a used tyre. The new set of tyres, of course, still in their blankets. Wasn't ready for the car. Didn't expect to stop.
Oh, what a shame for Ralf Schumacher, second in the World Championship, and that has just cost him a huge amount of time. Meanwhile, Coulthard did get out ahead of Trulli, but behind Button, so that has stayed the same. Coulthard between the two Renaults, but it was a close run thing as they came down to that first corner, but Coulthard has once again rejoined in the same place. You know, John, I think they had a look at the rear wing on the McLaren. We're looking at the front wing on the Williams.
This is, I think, coming up to Campsa corner. Ralf, yeah, it is the Campsa corner. Ralf turns in, watch. Does he ride? Oh yeah, he gets a big wobble. He rode the curb. He then went back and stepped out. He had to correct, went across the track, across the dirt, and that damage, there you can see part of the barge board came into the cockpit. Ralf had to throw it out of the cockpit, and the team also, just as a precaution, changed the nose on the car. That was a driver fault. Ralf made a mistake. He will pay the price. He could even find himself not on the podium.
Well, that is bad news indeed, and they weren't able to replace the barge board itself. They only replaced the nose cone and the front wing, so that will affect the handling of the car. It'll make it tough for him to do battle with the others. We'll see how he gets on as he comes around at the end of this lap, but he's lost an awful lot of places.
But no, this is the race of the race. It's the race of the Brits. It's an Englishman and a Scotsman. It's a French car, a Renault, and so Anglo-German Mercedes McLaren. The battle, 0.9 of a second, doesn't matter the time. There you can see David Coulthard pushed very hard before he made his pit stop, but to avail. He couldn't get sufficient time to put himself ahead, partly because the team wanted to check the rear wing, those supports, correctly in doing so.
Yes, the right thing to do, but they'd made such a good stop, and he'd done some very quick laps before that. If they hadn't had to do that, I think he might have got out ahead of Button, because it was so close as they went down to the first corner. Look how close behind he is now, and well, all he can do is push as hard as he can. He probably won't be able to overtake at this stage. He's got to stay with Button and try and do it all over again at the next stop. There is Adrian Newey walking back from the pit wall. They will have had a look at the wing. Obviously they're happy at the moment that it doesn't look likely to fail, as did Kimi Raikkonen's in the early stages of this Grand Prix.
Well, they come across start finish line, half a second. The problem for David Coulthard is the problem that everybody here in Barcelona suffers from, that you get to within half a second, and then the effect of the rear wing, the way the aerodynamics flow around a Grand Prix car, turbulence off the rear wheels, it affects the front wing and how it interacts with the surface. David will start to pick up understeer if he's not careful. That'll lead to a little bit of deterioration, but look, closes down under braking into the Rapsol. He's not going to go by what the theory says. He's a racer. He's going to have a go, whatever it takes.
Meanwhile, Ralf Schumacher rejoined. He's now in 13th position. He lost around 40 seconds as a result of the pit stop to change the front wing and the front left tyre. That's a total time of 40 seconds. That puts Ralf down in 13th, only just ahead of Eddie Irvine. So he's now got to get past people like Alan McNish, Jacques Villeneuve, Bernoldi, even to get into the top 10.
And David Coulthard basically had a car he said was an oversteering car, wasn't looking forward to this afternoon's Grand Prix. Well, maybe running in the turbulence will even out the balance of the car. What it might do is actually make his car even more drivable. Could be one of the strange quirks that you get when you've got a car which doesn't give you the perfect balance, and in traffic it suddenly starts to come right.
Michael Schumacher's car seems to be running right. He's still lapping in the 1 minute 21.7 second bracket. Still has the fastest lap in this race at a 1:21.3, which he earned on lap number 25. He's just lapped Eddie Irvine. Now, here's his brother. He is down in 13th position. He was running second, remember, and that's how close he is to being lapped by Michael Schumacher.
And haven't we seen so many cars through the 3 days of this Grand Prix? They ride the curb up in Campsa corner and you pay the price. But here's a real battle now. Jensen has got his mirrors full of silver and black. McLaren, Mercedes-Benz, David Coulthard definitely wants a podium position. He must want that podium.
The interesting thing is that Jarno Trulli is closing up to them. If you look behind, you'll see the other Renault catching up. Now, I wonder if this set of tyres on Jenson Button's car not working as effectively as that first set, or whether they made a slight alteration in this pit stop that it isn't working out for him.
Well, what's clear is the pace of Button is dictating the pace of Coulthard, but Trulli is sufficiently far behind to be able to run about 0.6 of a second a lap faster, which is now allowing the Renaults once again to create this sandwich. Whether Button's got a problem, whether he's just sitting back and saying, well, I'm going to drive at a comfortable pace, I'm not going to let Coulthard intimidate me. If he thinks he can get past me, let him do so. I don't think he's going to be able to.
Coulthard applying the pressure. Here we are onto the start-finish straight, building up to maximum speed. You're looking back from Jenson Button's car at the McLaren, getting closer.
He's coming,
and closer.
he's coming.
Look at this, down the inside. David Coulthard goes for the move into the first corner. Button tries to defend, but he can't. There's a little bit of contact almost, but he gets out of the way, and delight within the McLaren pit as David Coulthard gets past Jenson Button, and that puts him into third place now with the demise of Ralf Schumacher. Surely Jenson Button's got a problem here, because Jarno Trulli has closed right up as well.
Yes, and I'd expect to see the Renault team saying to Jenson, if you can't maintain the pace, if you can't challenge Coulthard, let Trulli go through. Trulli is running quicker than you. Don't hold him up. We want to get on the podium. We want to score as many points as possible. But David Coulthard planned that well. He got a good run out of turn 13. He picked up the momentum. You could see in the second half of the straight he had superior top speed to the Renault of Button, and there was a clean pass. Jenson didn't make an issue of it. He could have been harder. He could have been a little bit more of a, let's say, use his one move to block Coulthard. He didn't choose to do that.
So Coulthard has moved up to third place. Let's take another look at this. A great slipstream, picked up the toe, but you have to say Button must have had some sort of problem. You wouldn't have expected him to be down on speed quite that much, then squeeze down the inside. He had to just jink out as Coulthard came through, but a straightforward overtaking manoeuvre for David Coulthard.
I don't think Coulthard would have found that pass.
Let Jarno go past you, please.
Yes, team, let him go past, let Trulli go past. I think I have to say Jenson could have been firmer on that manoeuvre. He could have been a little bit tighter. He didn't have to block, he just had to put his car in a position that would have made it difficult for Coulthard to shoot down the inside. Having said that, it's up to each driver to choose their race.
Michael Schumacher has lapped Ralf. Ralph's got out of his way, as is really he has to do. Now he's not in the battle for the race. And in fact, Ralph's not lapping quickly. I think the loss of the barge boards really has affected the handling of that car, because he's now down in the 1 minute 24s and he's not that close behind the next car, which is Alan McNish.
So you watch the two Renaults and see at what point that team command is going to be given. Well, Trulli being held up now. Renault instructing Button to let Trulli get through, and he will have to do that sooner or later, but there's no point in Jenson. He could do it here coming out of Campsa down into turn 10. Let Trulli slot down in the inside, but Jenson again staying. Trulli's pace has now dropped down to that of Button, and of course Jenson doesn't want to sort of lift off and then be under attack from Nick Heidfeld, who of course is the car directly behind Trulli.
So is he going to let his teammate through on this next lap? They'll be coming along the straight in just a moment. A couple of right-hand bends to go through, and then over the grid and onto the main straight here. And Button currently in fourth, but has already been asked to let Trulli come through. Meanwhile, we've seen some battles going on through the field. There is a battle going on at the moment still between Enrique Bernoldi in 10th and Jacques Villeneuve in 11th. They were very close together as they came across the line last time around. They've been in a battle all through this race, much as Panis and Frentzen have been. It's Arrows versus BAR Honda today, further down the field.
But the car that really is coming alive right now, forget about Michael Schumacher, he's up and gone, is David Coulthard.
Button, get out of the way, John, just to show you there that Button moved wide, let Trulli through, no problem.
I think there was maybe a selective radio message to Jenson to say, we've given you an instruction 2 laps to go, would you please obey that instruction? But the man who's really pushing him right now is David Coulthard. He's 13.5 seconds behind Montoya, but lapping again about half a second a lap quicker on that last lap, lap 36.
The problem for Button is he's going to have to watch out for Nick Heidfeld, because Heidfeld's actually not far behind in 6th place. There are the two Renaults, and you could just catch a glimpse of Nick Heidfeld in 6th position behind them, and Heidfeld's been on a bit of a charge himself, and there could be an opportunity. Massa is still running in 7th place, then Panis in 8th, Frentzen 9th, Bernoldi 10th, Villeneuve right behind him. They were only half a second apart on the last lap round. He's in 11th, McNish is 12th, Ralf Schumacher 13th, Irvine 14th, and Mika Salo still running 15th.
Looks like Jenson Button's got a fair handful of understeer as he comes through turn 13. You can see on the angle of the steering wheel, he had a lot of lock on to get the front of the Renault to bite to get him through turn 13.
Michael Schumacher's coming up on that Bernoldi-Villeneuve battle. We just saw it flash through the picture. Absolutely together, those two. It could be awkward when Michael comes up. They'll have to get out of his way, but unfortunately it might break up their battle, which would be a shame.
But if Jacques Villeneuve has got any brains, and he's got tons of brains, he'll let Michael go through and then try and grab a slipstream to put him ahead of Bernoldi, because both drivers will be obliged by blue lights, yellow flag. There goes down. Oh!
There comes Villeneuve. Villeneuve down the inside, and he's done it this time. And that's great opportunity for him, because with Michael coming up to lap them, it's best to get it done now. And so these two are having their battle. Their teammates are still involved in their frantic battle. Olivier Panis is 8th, and Frentzen just as close behind him in the other arrows in 9th.
You could see Bernoldi wasn't about to make it easy. Here we see the replay. Bernoldi goes from left of track across the riders. Look at Villeneuve right across the pit lane entrance, almost only a car width between him and the arrows, but gets the place. Bernoldi pulls back, does the correct thing. Good pass by Jacques Villeneuve, well judged. Well, it took a long time to get in position to do it. Once he was in position, didn't take him long to execute it.
We mentioned a moment ago that Button's going to have to watch out from Nick Heidfeld. Well, Heidfeld's still getting closer in that battle for what is 5th position, as Michael Schumacher closes up a little more to Enrique Bernoldi. But both arrows are running at the moment, and that's good news for them after all their reliability issues this season. Happy that they've actually managed to get some testing in between Imola and this race in Barcelona.
And here's the pressure now coming for the second time this afternoon for Jenson Button. Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber Petronas on the Bridgestone tyres, about to do, well, he's going to look for somewhere around the track. The top speed of these two cars should marginally favour the Sauber. They've got more power with that Ferrari-based engine. Jenson Button with the Renault V10 improving all the time. Very clever engine design, very good bottom end power, pulls him away out of the low speed corners where the torque of the engine really benefits the drag out of the corner, but the top end will suit the Sauber. Nick Heidfeld closing through the camps of the corner, been the bogey corner pretty much after all afternoon for 3 or 4 cars.
Yeah, that was the corner that Ralf Schumacher went off at earlier on, bounced over the grass and ripped the barge board off the Williams. He still runs, but he's down in 13th, and once again his lap time's not good. I think Ralf Schumacher's day, effectively in terms of scoring points, is all over. He's not going to be able to fight his way up the order. But Jenson Button has a battle on his hands. The car not responding nearly as well as it did in the first stint for whatever reason, and he's now got Nick Heidfeld here closing up, and behind Heidfeld, watch out for Felipe Massa. He's still some way behind at the moment, but these two are maybe slowing each other down, and Massa gained another 0.4 of a second, and he's some 4 seconds back on this battle.
And we got a quick glimpse into Heidfeld's cockpit, and you could just see the position, the relative position of his hands on the steering wheel, and the amount of movement he required to go through turn 13, to compare what we saw with Jenson a few laps earlier, where Button was having to fight understeer. That's his problem right now. He cannot get the front grip. He's got to slow the car down more than he needs to do under a normal circumstance to get the front end to bite before he can open the throttles. That's allowing Heidfeld to draw himself up to the back of the Renault, but he's gotten to a position where he's almost now stalled out, cannot maintain his momentum, and he's going to have to start thinking about, what am I going to do to get past a car running slower than me.
Enrique Bernoldi's just come in, and I don't think it's a regular pit stop, because he coasted in. The team was not ready for him. They are changing the tyres on Bernoldi's car, but I'm not quite sure what happened there, because they did not seem to be ready for him at all. He was involved in the battle with Villeneuve, and I wonder if he hasn't picked up some sort of technical trouble.
Well, in the meantime, race leader Michael Schumacher comfortably in the lead by 35.5 seconds. Now coming up to lap Jacques Villeneuve, and this will be all the way up to 10th place, will now be lapped by the race leader. Blue flag Jacques again, as we've seen earlier, before the pit stops, pulls over and lets Michael go through. And well, just almost sort of ironic that 5 years ago these two battled in the final Grand Prix of '97 to see who would be the world champion. And Well, Jacques went one direction, Michael stayed in his direction. He's won 2 at Ferrari, and is certainly at this early stage in the season who's going to bet him against a winning 3 for Ferrari in a row.
Look at Heidfeld once again, very close behind Jenson Button in this battle for 5th position. You saw Bernoldi come out of the pits. They spent a long time there. They look to be resetting some of the electronics on the steering wheel to me, so it looks like it was a technical problem. They did get him refueled and new tyres on, but they certainly weren't ready for him at all, and Bernoldi therefore drops down the order, gives Villeneuve a bit of breathing space, as Villeneuve perhaps now tries to close the gap up to Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's quite a long way up the road. Some 14 seconds he's got to make up on him.
And to give you some idea of the pace of Jenson Button, he's now 5.8 seconds behind his teammate Jarno Trulli, who was allowed by the team to go through some 4 laps ago.
Williams team getting ready to receive presumably Montoya. It could still be for Ralf Schumacher, of course, and in fact maybe it is Ralf, because they've got another front wing ready. The car has not been going well, so it's probably Ralf, the car not handling particularly well, so they may have readjusted. Now, what was going on here?
Well, they've got a fire extinguisher. They're aiming it somewhere around the back. Whether this, I don't know, it can't be a brake problem. Sometimes the brakes, when you come in very hard, do catch fire, but well, they sprayed something onto the back of the car as we go back to this battle between Jenson Button in 5th, Nick Heidfeld in 6th. And Heidfeld really getting stalled out now, running behind the Renault. Can't get any closer, can't maintain it. It would almost be better just to drop back a couple of 3/10 and then take another run.
Now, let's just see what's happening here. We might see Ralf come in there, and we might see Frentzen come in a little earlier than otherwise planned, because he's being held up behind Olivier Panis. Panis won the battle on the first round of pit stops, or perhaps we should say the BAR Honda team won that battle, but Arrows may try and get them back by bringing Frentzen in earlier. Meanwhile, Ralf Schumacher's into the pits now as Montoya. We ride with him through the final corner. Ralph's car being worked on, and they're putting another front wing on, which no doubt has been reset to try and give him a better front end grip. Looks as though he might have been struggling there.
I think he has been struggling, but just interesting to contrast again with Montoya as he came through turn 13, how much lock he's requiring, not as much as Button, but still quite a lot. Again, an indication that the front end grip for the Michelin team cars is not as good as we're seeing with the Bridgestone.
Comes out just behind David Coulthard and ahead of Jarno Trulli. That is the other battle to watch out for in the second round of stops, although Coulthard does seem to have the advantage over Renault now. But that's Button versus Heidfeld, and their pit stops, their second pit stops, will be crucial in terms of deciding the outcome of the battle. This is the Williams crew making their way back in, I think, after Ralph's stop. I don't think they're quite ready yet for Montoya, but of course they've got to switch the fuel hoses. Very heavy, those fuel hoses. They weigh some, when they got the fuel in, they weigh some 65 kilograms. Needs 2 people to carry them and get them ready to plug into the car.
And of course it's a very inflexible hose and a very difficult piece of equipment to use. Nonetheless, Juan Pablo Montoya, as we now see Renault preparing for one of their 2 cars, which of the 2 is going to come in first? I suspect it may be Jenson Button doing it early because he's got a problem. It's an understeer problem. Eddie Irvine also in problems and about to pull out.
Yeah, Eddie Irvine slowing right down. We saw De La Rosa go out earlier in this race after a mistake, plunged him into the gravel, and now it looks like mechanical failure for the Irishman. Now this could affect somebody coming into the pits. Oh dear, and we are expecting one of the Renaults to come in.
And I think that will be Jenson Button. I think the team are going to bring him in at the earliest possible opportunity to give him another set of tyres to try and enable him to get back out, get up to speed and to consolidate. And okay, it'll put him out of sync once again, but it may enable him when the second round comes, and it's Button into the pits, as is Heidfeld.
Button and Heidfeld, and Eddie did a good job driving onto the grass to get out of their way as they come in. So this is a crucial battle between the teams in the pit lane. This is the opportunity for the mechanics to get their man ahead. Who's it going to be to win this one? Heidfeld. It does depend on the amount of fuel that has to go in the car as well. Fairly long stop, and it's Heidfeld's going to get out in front of Jenson Button. Oh, is he? They're both on the speed limit. Well, what about this? Now they get on the power, off the speed limit. He shuts the door on him. Heidfeld versus Button into the first corner. Button surely going to attack.
No, he's not. He's on the brakes already. Heidfeld, but much deeper. Jenson is very, very cautious. We've seen that on the first lap. We've seen it and when Coulthard came past. He is not going to take a chance. He got on the brakes, and you could still see Heidfeld was still on the throttle at that point.
And Heidfeld went a little wide in the first corner there, but kept it together through the all-important Renault corner on the power early. And Heidfeld has gained that position. So, good move from the Sauber team. They didn't seem to need to put quite as much fuel in as Renault, and that has gained them a position, a crucial position.
So Jenson Button capable of lapping very quickly on his own. The one thing I'm beginning to sense from Jenson throughout this season is he doesn't show some of the levels of aggression we see from other competitors. Jarno Trulli in.
So Trulli comes in. Now remember, he's still involved in a battle with Coulthard, although Coulthard does seem to have the edge there at the moment, having run a very long first stint, and presumably won't have to put quite so much fuel in when he comes in to make his second stop. You can see an 8.4 second stop for Jarno Trulli, and he comes back out onto the circuit once again. We're still waiting for Michael Schumacher, Juan Pablo Montoya and David Coulthard to make their second stops.
And Olivier Panis, he's in the pits also, so that gives Frentzen an opportunity to get some free air, clear air, because he'll be back in very shortly as well. Because they're running within half a second of each other, he will try and do his own personal best, which he has just done in that first sector. In the meantime, Heidfeld and Button, this battle that we've seen pretty much through the middle sector in the race, swing has gone to Heidfeld. Jensen's got to focus, he's got to push, he's basically, I think, just got to get in and kick you know what.
Well, they've dropped down a bit behind people who've only stopped once so far, but give it a lap or two and most people will have made their second stops, sorting out the order once again. On board with Juan Pablo Montoya, and yes, just pulling over to the edge of the track there, I think was Olivier Panis.
Yes, he stopped. In fact, that car's on the pit lane exit. Whether that was the result of a pit stop, there he is, he's just getting out of the car, and I think that was the result of the pit stop. Something has gone wrong, and we've seen that happen so many times.
Felipe Massa is coming into the pits. Now, he was gradually closing up to that battle between Heidfeld and Button. I don't think that he's going to be able to feature in that battle, but let's watch and see.
And Frenzen's in as well.
Frentzen in as well. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the arrows from 5th position. These two had moved up, but of course now with these stops, it'll drop them back down again.
But more crucially for Frentzen, he was in that battle with Panis. Now that Panis is out, he doesn't have to worry. The team can be more selective when they make their pit stop.
Now watch where Massa rejoins here, because Heidfeld and Button are coming down the straight at the moment. Frentzen gets away, bit of a slow stop. Watch Massa. I think, yes, in fact, Heidfeld and Button have just gone through, and he rejoins behind them once again, but he may be a bit closer to the battle than he was.
But what Heinz-Harald Frentzen is now again in clear air. He's going to be zeroing in on Felipe Massa in the Sauber. So Frentzen, having been able to get rid of more through mechanical problems than anything else, Olivier Panis, as second place Montoya's in.
Juan Pablo Montoya down towards the Williams pit garage from 2nd position. He finished 2nd here last year, inheriting that on the final lap when Hakkinen retired, and they were his first points in Formula One.
David Coulthard 1:21.931. He is still pushing absolutely to the maximum.
Problem.
He's gone past Montoya.
For Montoya in the pits. Now, I don't know what happened there, but one of his guys seemed to have tripped and fallen. There was a definite problem for him, and there, well, that's Ralf Schumacher
yes,
going through, so that's not a big deal, but there was definite problem for the Williams crew.
Yes, it's one of the fuelers. Looks like he was caught maybe when the car moved, just wasn't ready. Montoya back out on track. That again will have cost vital seconds, and hopefully there's no injury to that particular engineer.
Well, let's see what happened. We'll might get another chance to look at that in a second or two. The Williams crew getting themselves shut away, and it all looked a little bit overexcited, and maybe somebody... Let's just take a look at the replay here. Came in, stopped, everything looking okay so far. Both front wings adjusted, front wheels fitted. Now, something happens here. They get the jack out. Oh, the fueler still engaged when Montoya moved. Now, that is a surprise. The jack was pulled. That is very, very dangerous. The fuel hose still engaged, and the board was lifted. He did lift the board.
Yes, well, that's down to the man on the lollipop. A misjudgment, and let's hope that the injury or any bruising you can see, bullying, well, left ankle, certainly that will be very, very painful indeed. And now we see Michael Schumacher coming in as David Coulthard. Coulthard has been working so hard all afternoon, and he really on merit deserves a podium finish. Good stop, 7.8 seconds from McLaren Mercedes. So David Coulthard has a very good chance now of consolidating his second place.
Yes, well, second place, that's right. Montoya's coming down the start-finish straight at the moment. Will Coulthard get out just behind?
He's gone by, he's through.
There is Montoya's second. Coulthard comes out in third position. So a possible podium here for David Coulthard after Montoya's problems. And as long as Montoya doesn't get penalised in any way, any sort of issue with a penalty after what happened there in the pits, Michael Schumacher. Well, it's another perfect stop from Ferrari. What can you say?
Well, it's been an ideal afternoon for Michael Schumacher, never challenged to date, but he must have a thought in his mind. That problem with Rubens Barrichello, the problem that Michael himself had in the morning warm-up. You know, we have still a 65-lap race, 18 laps remaining, a long way, and anything can happen.
Schumacher rejoins then. He's got some clear space at the moment. Villeneuve coming around that final corner. Villeneuve running in 9th position, and the stretcher being prepared for the Williams mechanic, and that's a sorry sight. And of course, it's always dangerous in pit lane. So much energy, so much tension, and it can go wrong with just the slightest slip.
Well, this is motor racing's version of ballet. It's so choreographed. Teams practice this. There's so many people involved. Really, if one thing goes wrong, then it all collapses. Dickie Stanford just coming out of the pits as the stretcher, the gurney, is taken into the Williams team. He will be taken to the medical centre and will receive any treatment that the team, the doctors, feel are necessary. Watch Frentzen trying to hunt down Frentzen, chasing Massa with Button just ahead of him. Nick Heidfeld now 4 seconds ahead of Jenson Button.
Yes, but Jenson Button has to watch out for Felipe Massa, who, as we thought, with that pit stop, came out behind Button, but not far behind him, and there was only 0.7 of a second between Button and Massa when they came around last time.
Well, that's a little battle again. Jenson hoping that he's got a better set of rubber on his Renault. It was clear that he couldn't run at the pace on that second run that he was able to do, but there, the battle, look at Felipe Massa right up. Now we know that Jenson isn't the most aggressive racer. Felipe Massa, we haven't seen him race, but I suspect, look, Button runs wide, loses grip. You can see now Massa's going to have a punt on the inside, isn't he? Yes, oh yes, go on, no. Yes, he is, yes, he does.
He makes it by the looks of it, but can he hold it? You know, Button's definitely got a problem with that car, but no, Button fights back again on the outside. That's pretty impressive stuff. Now Massa tries to cut down on the inside, on the exit of the Seat hairpin. He can't quite manage it. The next corner doesn't really allow overtaking, but get out of this one quickly and then through the next right-hander, and you might have an opportunity on the run towards the La Caixa hairpin, and there are the Sauber boys watching his progress.
He's not close enough, he can't get close. Aerodynamics again come into play through Campser corner, difficult corner to run close behind another car. His best shot is going to be down coming out of turn 13. Watch the understeer that Button's got. We get the onboard view. Watch the position of his hands in the steering wheel. Look how close Massa can close up. He's got grip. Button's struggling. He's off the throttle where Massa is on the throttle.
So that's the problem for Button there. Again, he loses speed through there. Massa very quick, loses a bit of downforce, but he should have a decent run on Jenson Button this time as they cross the line. 48 laps completed by the leaders. Can he get enough of a slipstream as we saw Coulthard do earlier? He's not quite close enough here. And again, he has to follow the Renault through the first couple of corners.
But again, watch Renault on the exit coming through this long corner. This is where Button had picked up a fistful of understeer. Had to back out at Massa again. Closer this time as on the exit. As he had a look down the inside. He didn't get the job done last lap. This time Button just able to defend more convincingly.
And watch out for Frentzen behind. That flash of orange you saw a moment ago. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is joining into this battle. What fun. We've got a good fight going on for the remaining World Championship point. This is all about 6th position. And
of course for Arrows it will be the most important point if they can find a way past Massa and Jenson Button. They've yet to score. We've not seen any points for BAR. Jordan are out of the thing altogether. Jacques Villeneuve running in 9th. He's behind this battle. Let's look again. Massa. This is Jenson Button coming down the end of the straight. Look at the vibration on the front wing. Partly that's caused by the disturbance of the air coming off the Renault. Vibration, front wing vibration, rear wing. But Felipe Massa not in a position to challenge.
Well, here's the man out in front, Michael Schumacher, having another new lap record. Look at that, a 120.4, what a stunning lap, a 120.355, and that's 0.8 of a second faster than his existing lap record from last year. Well, he just wanted perhaps to prove how fast this car is, and he's done it on a new set of Bridgestones after his final pit stop.
As Michael comes down to the end of the straight, he's going to shortly catch up to this bunch of 3 cars that are squabbling over that last position, 6th place in the points. So it's going to be a couple more laps, then Michael's going to be looking at putting a lap on Frentzen, then Nasser, then Button. As they're all focused, just zoning in on one another. They must never forget race leader coming through. They will get blue flags, they'll have a blue light in the cockpit. They must get out of the race leader's way.
Michael Schumacher has a 44-second advantage. Massive lead over Juan Pablo Montoya. Coulthard is some 7 seconds behind Montoya, and then the gap back another 10 seconds to Jarno Trulli, still running in 4th position in the Renault. Trulli has had a horrible season so far. He would be pleased to finish in 4th here today. Heidfeld is running in 5th position, and then we've got this battle for 6th. It's all about Jenson Button, Felipe Massa and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and there are the 3 cars.
And it seems as if either Button's car is just picking up a little bit more grip, or simply that Felipe Massa has got himself to a position where he can't work out what to do, how can he get past the Renault. And in the meantime, look at Heinz-Harald Frentzen and the orange arrows. He's pulling up to the back of these 2 cars substantially quicker.
Great views once again, flashing past that new grandstand in Barcelona, and the fans, I think, really concentrating on this battle. This is the major battle of the race now, and it's about 1 point. 6th position, it gives you 1 point, and it's crucial to teams like Sauber here and teams like Arrows as well. Kimi Räikkönen, I'm afraid, walks away after that rear wing failure. Sadly, his day is done. There's his fiancée, Jenny Dahlman, the Finnish model, announced his engagement just a couple of weeks ago. But for him, he's out of the race as we ride on board briefly with Juan Pablo Montoya.
And again, watch his hands. Look how much steering lock. I mean, that's almost a half a turn of the steering lock. Look. I mean, you should never have anything like that amount of lock on a car in a high-speed corner like that.
So still struggling for balance, but you know, Williams would be pretty happy to get a 2nd place here. That might be better than they could have expected. The trouble for them is in terms of the constructors' battle, which they've been fighting with Ferrari, is that they've got just the 1 car in the battle for points, as Ferrari have this time.
And really, you can see the struggle Montoya has. He's got understeer, and then he sort of tries to balance it and throttle, and it flicks into oversteer. No front end grip, and that's the problem we saw with Jenson Button as well. He's battling out for that final point in 6th place. As David Coulthard, 6.4 seconds. Coulthard, well, running, in fact, the Coulthard and Montoya running about the same pace. Coulthard sometimes seems to get a second breath and can push that a little bit harder. It just depends ultimately on the balance of these 2 cars in respect of who's got more or less of that lack of front grip.
So David Coulthard continues on his way, chasing down Montoya if possible, but really I think that he would be relieved. And look at this, Massa close again to Jenson Button. Dear oh dear, it's the same corner. That is, I think, really the main possibility for the Brazilian to get past Button, but it didn't quite work again, and now Massa's got to keep an eye on his mirrors because Heinz-Harald Frentzen is right there and ready to take advantage of any little slip-up.
Well, we know that the Arrows is picking a straight down the main straight, 314 kilometers per hour, 5th quickest car so far. As we look into the Williams garage and see a little bit of treatment going on that left ankle. So Frentzen's got a marginal straight line speed advantage, but can he get close enough on the exit of these final 3 corners onto start finish straight to take any advantage? In the meantime, Michael closing up, but something like a second a lap.
Yes, he is closing up, although Michael's not pushing quite as hard as he was earlier in the race, that's for sure. Having established his superiority, now he wants to look after the car and count down the 13 laps that remain. Across the line once again, this trio of cars. Jenson Button fighting to hold off Felipe Massa, and Massa having a good look in his mirrors now as that Ford Cosworth powered Arrows closes up at the end of the straight.
Well, Heinz will be aware that Michael Schumacher's closing down as well, and he might well try to get the job done before Michael closes up behind him. On the other hand, he might say, well, when Michael comes through, I'll slip through as well. But these 3... That's Jenson, he's got fuel surge from the Renault.
Fuel surge through turn 2, and that's not very helpful at all for him. If the car's cutting out, that explains why he's always a bit slow through that section of track, and that's where Massa always gets a run on him. The other sections of track, he seems to be able to just eke out a bit of a gap again.
Well, fuel surge is very rare in a Formula 1 car today. The fuel tanks are constructed in such a way it's almost impossible for any fuel.
Normally, it's a hydraulic problem. We should be able to get to the end.
And he said a hydraulic problem there from the team.
I can't imagine a hydraulic problem affecting fuel flow, but, well, that's the team's diagnosis of Jensen's description of the problem, and they're better placed than we are. And again, now you see the pressure that Massa's under from Frentzen, getting right under the Cyber's rear wing. If Frentzen can use the speed of the Arrows down the straight, he could have a pop as they come down at the end. This is the end of lap 54.
So can Frentzen, the experienced driver in the Arrows, try and find a way past the man in his first season of Formula One, Felipe Massa. Massa moves around a little bit, not close enough, and that looks like the main area. Now this is the section where Button's in trouble, as he reported on the radio. It's up through here, and this is where Massa nearly always manages to go.
Whoa, big wobble.
Oh dear, I think Massa knows he's got to be quick through there. This is his opportunity, but it's not this lap.
But also, you see, every team can monitor everybody else's radio, so no doubt Sauber team have picked up that Jensen's got a problem. They'll be telling Felipe Massa a problem for the Renault, particularly on the exit of turn 2. Use your advantages, try and get the job done. You know, look right behind him. That's a very wide angle camera lens. The distance between Sauber and Arrows is in reality much less than you see on camera.
Now coming up through Capsa corner, this is where Ralph went off a little earlier on. Ralph Schumacher's mistake, which ripped the barge boards off the car and has seen him drop down the order. Ralph currently running in 11th place, and still the lap times nothing to write home about for Ralph. So it's been a disappointing day for the man running second in the championship, but this battle's great, and what a fantastic view we have on board with Felipe Massa. Look at that Arrows, the way it's twitching around.
Michael Schumacher just coming into view behind the Arrows. Now he's probably trying to do everything he can to avoid getting involved in this battle. He's backed off. He's got a 40-second advantage over Montoya, so he can afford to run at the pace that these two cars right now, 3 of course Button just ahead, are running at. There's the top speed, 3:16. Raikkonen 3:24.
Yes, that was earlier on in the race, of course. Before, well, that was. I wonder if that was the lap Raikkonen lost his rear wing or not.
Could well be.
With a bit less drag on the car. So Button carries on round, still holds off Massa, and he still holds off Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But with just 10 laps to go, is that going to be the way it finishes? Or is somebody here going to make a little mistake? That is what could make the difference. Michael Schumacher following them.
And the Arrows appear to be able to make ground on the Sauber as they turn into that downhill left-hand corner at Sead. Always a difficult corner. The bite the Arrows has got at the front appears to be oh, and again close as they come through Kamsa. Watch the exit. Where's the Arrows? Well, he has to back off a little bit. He just cannot maintain that close proximity, and then he loses out in that run down into Lacay. So that's the double left-hander. Always difficult to get bite going in, then traction off the corner. You can hear the traction control in the middle of it.
Let's just watch them for a moment through this section. Back on the power once again, and now Frentzen desperately trying to get up under the rear wing of Massa as they come through the last corner. Again, we've got this view looking straight over the back of Felipe Massa's car in 7th, and he's checking his mirrors, looking this way and that, and Frentzen's still not ready to make his move. He may have just been comfortable to hound the youngster for the moment, perhaps not even try and make a move for a lap or two, just to try and worry him.
Interestingly, Jensen Button is now marginally quicker on that last lap, but again on the exit Button seems to lose that ground. Whatever the surge he's talking about, now I can't imagine it might be, I mean it can't be fuel surge, it must be oil surge he meant, because talking about hydraulics, with the pictures they have, they may be able to move oil around the tank, have a reserve of oil or something. So Jensen Button again pulled away marginally.
Oh, and Massa's gone past. Something's happened to Button. Massa's just gone past, and Jensen Button suddenly slowed, and there is the Arrows past as well. So there must have been some sort of problem there. I just suddenly saw that Massa had nipped through, and that's put the Sauber into 6th place. Well, how about it?
And Jensen Button, whatever that surge problem is, it clearly played a major part in him losing that 6th place, the final points position of the day. Blue flag now. I think Jensen's going to go into the pits probably. I can't imagine that he'll want to continue unless the team say stay out, stay out, stay out. He's staying out.
He's staying out. I don't know quite what happened when Massa went past. Just suddenly saw that Massa was ahead, and Frentzen nipped through at the same time. So whether under pressure with a car that's not handling, Button made a mistake, or whether they just died on him for a moment, I'm not quite sure. There is Michael Schumacher. Schumacher's not pushing. I think he's been quite happy to just sort of follow them round. Let's take a look.
Well, he made an error. He was just way offline entering. either he would brake too late, he just certainly was far too far to the right going in through turns 7 and 8, and then you see Frentzen just scrabbles round on the dirty offline part of the racetrack. Let's look again. The button's way off. What's he doing away out there? Was that a problem? Did maybe momentarily he lose power or something? We'll find out later after the race.
It almost looked like he'd let them through, but he's still running, so it's not as if he had a terminal problem with the car. So we'll have to wait and see. He has been lapped now by Michael Schumacher.
And now Jacques Villeneuve running very close to the rear of Jenson Button. He's about to take away the position that Jenson has just recently inherited.
Yes, that's 8th place, so Villeneuve 9th, but looks to gain one. Behind him, McNish is still running. Good that Alan may finally get a result in. It won't be the points, but it would be a finish.
And David Coulthard working pretty much all in his own, pushing again 5.6 seconds behind Juan Pablo Montoya. We've seen Montoya having to deal with a lot of understeer this afternoon. In the meantime, David Coulthard has worked long and hard, and hopefully he will get a reward with that podium finish. 5.6 seconds, 8 laps to go. It's a mountain to climb. David, braveheart as he is, he will try.
So Montoya lapping a fair bit quicker than teammate Ralf Schumacher, and that just shows you that Ralf Schumacher's car, after the damage was done earlier, never recovered, even with a different nose cone. It was the barge boards, the loss of the barge boards, those little bits of carbon fibre that sit behind the front suspension, sweeping on the McLaren. We talked about the one on the Ferrari with its new sawtooth edge, and the barge boards that guide the air around the car, under the car, through the side pods. Gives you an idea how much difference they make. It might not look significant, but Ralph's about 2 seconds a lap slower than his teammate at this stage in the race.
Well, David struggled just a little bit midway through that lap. He may have dropped a tenth. Well, he's not. He's picked up 4 tenths. So it's 5.2 seconds, but the mathematics do not work. 7 laps of this Grand Prix now remaining. All Coulthard can hope to do is have a problem for Montoya. He's driven a superhuman race, I think, all afternoon, with a car that he thought was going to be difficult at best and probably purely recalcitrant at worst.
Coulthard then really has responded to the challenge of a difficult season, doing what has to be done, and that's applying himself, and he's certainly done that here this afternoon. Had a tough time here last year when he stalled on the formation lap. The introduction of launch control, something went wrong with the system, had to fight his way from the back and finished in 5th. He seems to have fought his way all afternoon here as well, but he is in that all-important 3rd position, and that would be a little bit of a relief after being lapped at San Marino in the San Marino Grand Prix. Well, at least this time he's on the same lap as Michael Schumacher.
Yes, and the gap, of course, there's about half a lap difference between Michael's position on track and David Coulthard coming through turns 9, 10 into 11. In the meantime, Michael Schumacher probably coming out of the Seat curve, so it's about halfway between the lead car, Michael Schumacher, and number 3, David Coulthard.
A day of disappointment for McLaren, though. You have to say that rear wing failure, a big cause of concern. Kimi Raikkonen going out so early on when the rear wing fell off the back of the McLaren. They had a good look at Coulthard's car earlier. Let's just hope that nothing goes wrong with the back end of his machine here after we've seen those dramas. Look at Frentzen, he's still applying the pressure to Felipe Massa. They both got past Button, but Frentzen still pushing the young Brazilian.
Indeed he has to, because Tom Walkinshaw is on the pit wall giving a right bit of an ear bashing to Frentzen and say, get a move on, I need that one single point, you need it. We've got to get our team off the blocks. We've got to get more than that 0 point we've had so far out of the previous 4 races. The young Brazilian had pressure all round, doing a good job. Very experienced Heinz-Harald Frentzen behind him in the Arrows, and great to see Arrows running strongly for the first time this year. We're seeing Frentzen in a competitive position.
Yes, a chance to score a point. We haven't even seen him with a chance so far this season, and now with just this car of Felipe Massa to challenge, the Sauber crew are still looking concerned. Don't forget that Nick Heidfeld is running in 4th place here. That's one of their best results of recent times, so excellent run for Nick Heidfeld in 4th, and what Sauber are hoping for is to have both cars in the points here this afternoon. Best finish for Nick Heidfeld in the past has been a 3rd place, but 4th would do very nicely. Thank you very much for him and the other Sauber.
In the meantime, just coming from the pitch, we've heard that one of the problems, maybe not the only one, that Jenson Button is going through this afternoon is gear changing. So they're saying to him, you keep to the minimum the number of gear changes you're making. Now that's not particularly easy, but running all the way down to 9th place, and he's some 12 seconds ahead of Alan McNish, it's almost an irrelevance.
Great shame for Jenson Button after some very strong races recently, but that's the way it goes sometimes. This is the battle that we're enjoying for the final championship point between the Sauber, the Swiss team that uses Ferrari engines very much as a customer. They bring those Ferrari engines in, and what a great engine it is. It's last year's Ferrari engine, but it's still very strong. And they're up against the Arrows team here with the Ford Cosworth power, same engine as Jaguar uses. That is a very strong engine, and Heinz-Harald Frenzen's now got a chassis that can show what he can do. But
Tom Walkinshaw did tell us over the weekend that they're about 3 steps behind where the factory Jaguar engine is, which is essentially the same engine but just slightly more developed. He'll be knocking on the door of Ford saying, give me more power. If you can't get the job done, at least give me the opportunity to have parity in horsepower and let me get on and give you something in return for your investment.
Now look at this. Why is
Trulli slowed down?
Trulli is he was, as they went across the line, he was a lot further ahead. He was 3.4 seconds ahead of these two, so Trulli seems to have some sort of problem as well now.
Well, Trulli, and now Michael Schumacher, in spite of trying to not catch up while he's backed up again, Trulli's in trouble.
Trulli's definitely in trouble. There goes Massa. Felipe Massa already goes a little bit wide. Felipe Massa has moved into 5th position, and Arrows are into the point. Heinz-Harald Frentzen moves into 6th, but Renault, what is going wrong? Poor Jarno Trulli. It just never comes together for him. Every time he's in a decent position, something goes wrong, and it's the same story here today.
Well, what a day of highs and lows for teams. Renault looked so strong in the early part of the race. They sandwiched David Coulthard. Kimi Raikkonen, of course, retired from McLaren. Coulthard now in 3rd place. Both Renaults out of the points and struggling. Arrows in the points for the first time this year. 2 Saubers in the points, and still Ferrari dominates.
Still Ferrari up front, but we've watched some great battles further back. This was the moment. Trulli had no answer. He didn't try and block Massa. The car simply is not working properly. Massa didn't get too overexcited. I thought he might do for a moment.
Again, the rear wing on that Sauber, maybe again might say turbulence, but it just looks the way that the wing is mounted on the Sauber. It's slightly more flexible. It's certainly, you could see a lot of movement, lateral movement, and there we see Trulli pulling out. And that's a Button or Trulli?
A Button, I think that's.
It is.
I think it's Button who's going so slowly now. And so Jenson Button, oh, what a shame. He's had a very disappointing afternoon. 4th in the World Championship before this race, but well, it looks as though it's over for him now as he pulls off.
And that sounds like a cement mixer, a bag of nails, and Jenson Button has finally retired.
Didn't make it to the end of the lap. Yeah, understood, chaps.
Well, that's a great shame for the Renault team. They put in a huge amount of effort. They've shown those cars are more on the pace now, but they've got to work on the reliability. But what it will mean, I think, is that Coulthard will move to 4th in the Drivers' Championship. He'll move 1 point ahead of Jenson Button as their battle to score points continues. But Nick Heidfeld also looking to score well here. Both Saubers in the points. 4th and 5th place they're running in at the moment. Well, that's certainly something to write home about.
But I think the biggest result of the day, if this happens, 2 laps to go, Michael Schumacher virtually in a position to lap 6th and 5th place cars, is for Tom Walkinshaw and the Arrows team. They've had a difficult season. They've had a quick car, but not a reliable car. The car has been quick today. So far, I hate to say it, it's run reliably. Bernoldi, of course, retired much earlier in the race. He had his problems, retired some tour halfway through the race.
Well, we're still watching Massa versus Frentzen. That battle continues, although Frentzen perhaps won't take any huge risks now to get past Massa. It might have been worth it earlier to get into the points. He is already in the points now, and perhaps it's not worth a huge lunge on Felipe Massa and then risk not getting anything at all.
And of course, Michael Schumacher happy to let these two battle away. He's coming up to complete the penultimate lap. He will go across the line. 1 lap to go. So Michael sits back and watches his former German teammate in the junior Mercedes-Benz team back in the late 80s. As Michael commences now the final lap, as this battle for 5th and 6th place has 2 laps to go.
Michael Schumacher then heads for victory number 57 in his career. They just keep coming. Race after race after race. Michael Schumacher dominating the early stages of this 2002 World Championship. It will be his 4th win of the season and a hat-trick of victories, and we have to go back to the end of 2000 and the beginning of 2001
As
for
Jarno
him to get a
Trulli,
run going. Jarno Trulli coming into the pits. Well, it's all gone horribly wrong for the Renault team. Feel desperately sorry for them after providing us with great entertainment in this race and looking so strong at certain times. But for Michael Schumacher, everything has run like clockwork. Once again, when problems affected Ferrari in the race, they didn't affect the car of Michael Schumacher, they affected the other car of Rubens Barrichello. He didn't even get away from the grid, and Michael Schumacher has driven wheel perfect all afternoon.
Yes, it's just been a masterclass from Ferrari for Michael Schumacher. Again, lifts his hand now. You don't see Michael do that too often, but acknowledging the tens of thousands of Ferrari fans, many of whom have come from Italy, many of whom, of course, are Spanish.
Michael Schumacher comes through to win the Spanish Grand Prix. It's the 4th time he's won here in Barcelona, and once again, nobody has ever won 4 races here, so he sets new records on his way to further extend his championship lead.
And he wins his 57th Formula One World Championship Grand Prix, and well, where's it ever going to end?
Well, you have to say, John, he is the dominant force, the dominant driver, the dominant team, and just take a moment to think what Ferrari have done with this car. Once again, it is unbeaten. The 2002 Ferrari has not been beaten in either qualifying or race. Juan Pablo Montoya finishes in 2nd, and that is a boost to him and to the team, but the fact of being beaten so cleanly and so comprehensively by Ferrari is so disappointing. And in fact,
okay, Michael, well done.
Just looking at that, I think is Ralph's car that has just expired on the last lap.
Yeah, that's a job. And much more, you have given me a wonderful dream car for us. Really, all of you guys, I'm very happy. I'm sorry for Rubens, this poor guy. I mean, it's hard to believe that it always happens to him. I really feel sorry for him. So guys, okay, thank you.
Felipe Massa finishes in a fine 5th position. Heinz Harald Frentzen takes the 1st point of the season for Arrows.
And Michael Schumacher gave him a performance worthy of any Oscar. And but of course it is sincere, he means it. He did not know if he was going to suffer the same problem that befell his teammate, but Michael Schumacher once again just in a class, in a world of his own. Interestingly, that Juan Pablo Montoya, by coming in 2nd, puts himself 3 points ahead of Ralf Schumacher in the Drivers' Championship, and that'll be within the Williams BMW team. A very tightly fought battle indeed.
Yeah, but he'd be 18 points off the World Championship lead.
4th and 5th. Very good race, very good.
And just seeing there what happened to Ralph as he's pulled off at the end of the race. Just quickly looking through the results, Coulthard getting the podium. That will put him ahead of Button in the championship, as I mentioned. And also looking on with Sauber, both cars in the points. Let's just take another look. What happened to Ralph here at the end?
Well, wait for the big Clyde. There it comes out of the right-hand bank. That is an engine problem, and just literally on the last lap on the water. Now there you have to say there's a water leak. How the water leak occurred, maybe different versions.
I think that's the first BMW we've seen expire in a race this year, though, so they've had a reliable run up to now. As Mika Salo gets out, both Toyotas finished, and Alan McNish ahead of Mika Salo. They were 8th and 9th.
In fairness to Salo, he did have that one early pit stop, which was an unscheduled pit stop. He had 3 pit stops, and of course that's maybe part of the reason, but not to take anything away from Alan McNish, who's really, I think it's the first Grand Prix he's finished this year.
Well, he did get a finish in Malaysia, finished in 7th. They had some problems there, but otherwise that is his first finish, so he's had a tough time with reliability. Michael Schumacher 44 points ahead of Montoya on 23 points, so a huge advantage for him as we see further on down the list. Nick Heidfeld scoring very useful points here today. He's now on 5, and Montoya climbs out of his Williams after working hard this afternoon.
An interesting, Ben, as well. Michael Schumacher finished this year's 65-lap Grand Prix some 30 seconds quicker than he did last year, and that was without any pressure. He was never at any point in this Grand Prix pushed He only drove the pace he chose to drive at, and even that was good enough to drive away from the opposition.
Yes, for lap after lap he was quite content to sit behind the battle we were watching for 6th position. He could have been a lot further ahead if he tried. 35.6 seconds his advantage, and it's time to start celebrating now.
You think you're at Monza, you wouldn't realise you're in Spain when you see that new grandstand absolutely filled, and the cheers and acknowledgements as David Coulthard again. A very, very good drive. David did a great job for his team.
McLaren third in the Constructors' Championship as they were, but the interesting thing is that Renault and Sauber are now tied for 4th position in that Constructors' battle, both on 8 points. Renault failing to score today after it looked like they were going to get a decent result out of both cars, and Sauber getting both cars within the points.
Yes, and interesting and nice to see Paolo Martinelli, who is responsible for the Ferrari engines. He's going to be the Ferrari representative on the podium to accept the manufacturer's prize.
So let's take a look at the results then. Michael Schumacher winning for Ferrari ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya in the Williams BMW. Coulthard surviving to finish in 3rd place, a hard-fought 3rd place. Nick Heidfeld in 4th position ahead of his teammate Felipe Massa, and both cars in the points for the 2nd time this year. But Heinz-Harald Frentzen scoring a point for Arrows. That will be major relief for Tom Walkinshaw with the budgetary problems that so many teams are having. That is a huge help. Jacques Villeneuve 7th ahead of McNish. Sarlo truly still classified, but of course he did come into the pit.
Well, remember back on Friday afternoon we spoke to Tom in the pit lanes, and I said to him, Tom, that performance from Frentzen at that point, they were 2nd quickest in practice. I said, Tom, that's got all the makings of a sponsorship time, doesn't it? And he said, well, I've never heard a sponsor write a cheque after one practice session. Well, maybe now, after a Grand Prix, after your first point in this year's World Championship, you may find some sponsors keen to associate themselves with your team. Well done, Tom, and to everybody in Arrows.
And of course sometimes the contracts are performance related anyway, so once a team starts scoring points it brings more money in according to the contract. So great news for Arrows, it's exactly what they needed, but Renault for Jenson Button and Jarno Trulli, deep disappointment towards the end of the race, particularly for Trulli, who's had a tough time, hasn't scored any points this season despite being competitive. His time will come, I'm sure, later on this year.
Well, a familiar sight for all the Ferrari team, their engineers, Michael's personal trainer and dietitian, as the three come out. Michael again, I don't know, he sees people, when he's on the podium, he always winks at somebody, thumbs up, little acknowledgement. So many members of the team come out and he just catches their eye as King Juan Carlos of Spain congratulates all three.
Michael Schumacher then receiving the applause from the fans here in Barcelona, round 5 of the World Championship, and it's another victory for the 4 times world champion.
Well, I wonder how many of these bring him pure joy, but I think this one was also quite sweet. Didn't have to work for it as hard as in the past, and he does enjoy a good scrap. Nevertheless, another 10 points to add to the 34 he already has, as Paolo Martinelli holds up the manufacturer's trophy. And how many of those the Ferrari now got back at the headquarters at Maranello?
Wonderful trophy, isn't it? The steering wheel trophy is fantastic. And Juan Pablo Montoya receiving his for 2nd position. David Coulthard receiving his trophy for 3rd, and that's a big smile from David after what has been a tough time here for them in Barcelona. So time for the champagne shower to begin. Ferrari continue their winning ways in this 2002 season, bringing the team's total number of victories up to 148, not far off the 150 mark now for Ferrari, and Michael Schumacher just delighted to win again here. But what about Rubens Barrichello? How come all the bad luck seems to go his way?
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Dennis, well, Ron, go on, show some pleasure, don't it, a mean old sod. David drove a really good race for your team today. A lot of work to be done. You should show a little bit more joy, I think, than that.
I think everyone a little bit shell-shocked, John, once again about the level of Ferrari domination. The pace that he had there. Set the lap record, he did everything. He got pole position, he won the race, set fastest lap. You know, I think everyone's just feeling a bit blown out of the weeds by the fact that Ferrari-Michael Schumacher combination is so fast.
There's no answer in the short-term sight. McLaren for sure with the Mercedes, Williams with BMW are all working flat out. Don't forget about Renault, they are coming, and they're coming strong. Beyond that, well, they've always got the midfield. We've got to think, really, probably the most scary fact of this Grand Prix is now that the only teams not to have scored points in the World Championship are the 2 teams that are powered by Honda. I can never imagine ever making that statement after 5 races in a Grand Prix season.
Honda, who have been so successful over the years and powered so many world champions, and yet no points scored after 5 Grand Prix of 2002. That is the surprise, the shock perhaps of this season. Shocks are always created. Even Toyota have managed to get into the points in their first year of Formula One. Norbert Haub talking to the press after their 3rd place finish for Coulthard, but concerns about that rear wing failure for Kimi Raikkonen, who has up to date now only finished 1 race this year. That was the first race of the season in Australia. We'll take a quick look at the replay of them handing out the trophies, and a close word there between King Juan Carlos and Michael Schumacher. And they're making their way now through to the interview room, so in just a few moments' time we'll get to hear from the top 3, Michael Schumacher, Juan Pablo Montoya and David Coulthard.
And we see all the dignitaries getting clear of the winner's podium to ensure that no unnecessary shower of champagne gets over King Juan Carlos. But for some reason the driver's just very happy to spread over their respective teams, and there's a happy sight. Juan Pablo, well, he knows that today wasn't the day he could take the battle to Michael Schumacher. That'll come in later races. David Coulthard, I'm sure, just delighted once again to get onto the podium, get 4 more points, and I suppose now the British media will decide that David Coulthard is the British driver that they have to champion.
Well, Coulthard just 1 point ahead of Button in that championship now, but everybody dropping further away from Michael Schumacher, and that's the concern as we move forward. But of course not all the tracks will suit Ferrari quite as well as this one. We always knew this would be a good track for Ferrari. That's exactly how it's proved as Michael's powered his way to his 57th win. Let's go and hear from them right now.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Michael Schumacher, winner of the Spanish Grand Prix, Juan Pablo Montoya in 2nd, and David Coulthard 3rd for McLaren. Michael, that was a truly dominant drive. The first 2 stints of the race, you were pulling away at almost precisely 1 second a lap. Masterful.
Yeah, I mean, we were about 1 second ahead in qualifying yesterday. sort of wasn't 100% clear what it's going to be in the race, whether we maybe fall back in the race a little bit over the distance, which we have seen in the past several times. But then I have to say that the tyres Bridgestone has developed have performed very well in qualifying, which was a little bit lacking last race, but kept their consistency for the race, and that's something obviously we're very happy about. And then our car especially is obviously simply the right circuit for it. I mean, our guys, our team, they have done a tremendous job over winter time, and again, as I said, this circuit shows really what our engineers have done.
Now, Rubens Barrichello, your teammate, didn't even make the start. He had, I believe, gear selection problems. You had a hydraulic problem at the end of the warm-up this morning. Did you have any concerns that you might be on the sidelines too as well?
Yeah, obviously, as we had the problem with Rubens, we sort of tried to take care about whatever he have done. I don't actually know 100%, but we sort of did a safe pit stop and did certain things a little bit more careful in order to make sure not to happen the same thing. But yeah, it's sort of really bad luck for Rubens. I mean, everything has gone wrong this year so far, has gone wrong for him. But you sort of can't really think it will always go that way. You have to, you know that one day it's going to hit yourself. We simply hope and try our best not to let it happen. And again, sorry for Rubens.
Michael, thank you. Juan Pablo in the points for the first time in a while, but a long way behind Michael.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty difficult race for us, and I think we made the best of what we had. In the pits, we hit. I hit one of my crew chief, and hopefully he's all right. I heard actually he's all right, so a bit of a sorry there. But apart from that, the race went pretty well. We struggled all weekend with pace, and I think I gotta say I'm very pleased actually to get out of here with second place.
Now, you touched on your problem at the second pit stop, but what exactly happened? It looked as though the lollipop man lifted his lollipop just that little bit too soon.
Yeah, I think he lifted because he thought I could go, and he tried to stop me actually with his body. It was, I managed to pull the clutch in as fast as I could, but I already had run over him, and that was it really.
Thanks very much, Juan Pablo. David, starting 7th on the grid, did you ever think you might be up here in the unilateral conference in 3rd place?
Well, I knew it would only come through other people having problems, and clearly that's what happened today. The only battle I really had was with Jensen, and then after the first pit stop I was able to overtake him down into the first corner. But other than that, we were just sort of having a lonely battle. So I benefited from other people's misfortune, but you accept that because that's motor racing.
Now this morning we saw Mark Webber's rear wing come off on the start-finish straight. Early in the race, your teammate Kimi Räikkönen, he had his rear wing collapse. What did the team tell you while you were still lapping out there on the circuit?
Well, they didn't tell me anything. It was quite obvious what had happened, and there's no reason to pull the car out or for me to be worried about it because we haven't had a wing failure this year at all. Obviously they'll look at the remains of what's actually there and try and understand exactly why it failed, whether it was fatigue or whether it was manufacturing. But unfortunately those are just the stresses and strains that are on Grand Prix cars. Occasionally they fail.
David, thank you. Michael, back to you. Last spring it was the man next to you, Mr. Coulthard, who won in Austria, heading there 2 weeks' time. What chance do you think you have?
Well, it's all a bit of a matter of what's the tyre situation there, which tyre is going to compete better, perform better, and that's something we have to see. We don't know. We believe we have a very competitive package overall, but it's sort of the question, how good can the others be? And we have seen obviously here we were sort of dominant, but we have seen other races like Brazil where it was a close fight, and we have no idea what it's going to be in Austria like.
Michael, thank you very much. Now, Michael.